Today's talk, first of all, is more high-tech than usual because someone who should remain nameless has lost me a pointer. So I've got an rather large knitting needle that I shall use when I need to point to something for you. And he's also lost me clicker. So I've got an old mouse from the computer that is rigged up so I can move things on that. This is very much a seat of your pants talk because 2 weeks ago he said, I've not got anybody to talk, you can do one. I said, well, they've heard all the ones I've got. And some of them they've heard them twice. She said, well, do another one. What? And I thought, well, we've been going, it's actually, when we added up today, it's 24 years we've been going out to Spain. And we go to the same place to stay with a friend. And as you might expect, over 24 years going out, for the last few years we've spent 6 weeks out there each year. We were 3 weeks early on, and then 3 weeks later on. We've been to a few places, but we tend to stick quite close to where we are. We've gone off and visited some of the more fantastic sites like Cordoba and where else have we been? Seville, Cordoba, Jaén, lots of the big cities around there. But this is what we do when we just go out there and stay at home. So, with my trusty pointer, this is the area that we're talking about. First of all, I've got a list here. It says La Almathara, Albox, Alicante, Almanzora, Almeria, Al-Andalus, and Jabal al-Tariq. And you'll notice that you've got this al in each of those words. That's because it relates to Moorish Spain. And Moorish Spain was called Al-Andalus. And up to the 15th century, it extended most of, not just Spain, but the Iberian Peninsula. And then in the 16th century, the Catholic monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, started a concerted attack on the Moors and drove them south. And they started settling there in 800 and something. But the area that we're looking at is this little bit here. You've got the region of Andalusia, and we're going to the province of Almeria, which is this little bit. We're actually going over that border to one of the places just over in the province of Murcia as well. But Jabal al-Tariq, you're all very familiar with, but not in its Moorish form. Does anybody know what it's called? You be quiet. It's Gibraltar.
Yes.
Yeah. The rock, Tariq's rock. And that's where the rock of Tariq is Gibraltar now as we know it. So, La Almathara is the house that we stay at, which was actually the olive mill for the valley. Albox is the nearest town. Alicante is up here. We don't talk about that. We don't like Alicante. We only fly into it when we've got to. Almanzora is the name of the valley that comes down here to the sea, the Almanzora Valley that I'll show you a few photos of. Almeria is on the map there, and Al-Andalus was the Arabic name for the region, which we now call Andalusia. And the big things that you see, particularly sort of this time of year, is the blossom on the almonds. Yeah. And legend has it that one of the kings, one of the Moorish kings, had married a young woman who came from the north. Remember, Al-Andalus went virtually as far as the border with France, but he had married a young woman who came from the north countries, and she couldn't settle because she couldn't see the snows of her native lands. And legend has it that this Moorish king planted thousands upon thousands of almond trees so that when the almonds were in blossom, it would remind her of the white peaks of her homeland, and she'd become happy. It's probably all a load of codswallop, but that's what they say anyway. And the almonds, when they've grown there, this area that we go to is almonds, it is olives and goats. Not as many goats as there used to be, but there's still a fair number of around. But what they need to keep going is this, and water. And one of the things the Moors did, they constructed a 1,500-mile network of what are called Efekia channels. And they bring the water from, the idea was it brought the water from the Sierra Nevada mountains, which are just a little bit further up the coast, the high Sierra Nevada. It brought it down to these plains that the area we were going, so they got it for agriculture. Now, this channel is actually one of the ways that Dave gets, our friend Dave that we go to visit, gets his water. When he first moved there was no mains water, there was mains electricity, there was no phone, and his water came down the Efekia channel, and he got the right to either 1 or 2 hours a month, sometimes in the fortnightly in the summer, where he is allowed to go down and move the sluice gate that is on the Efekia channel, clears it out, moves the sluice gate, and the water then goes down his channel and into his storage tank. He still relies on that, not for drinking, but although he's got mains water, which he didn't get until 2018, the mains water often goes off, as does the electricity. It really is rural Spain. It's not your tourist area at all. And he has this channel, goes into his tank. Unfortunately, the snakes around there have a habit of launching themselves into the tank, and they can't get back out, so every so often he has to go and drag out the odd dead body of a snake. We don't use that water for drinking. He uses it to fill his pool, and he uses it to water the garden. But also, if the mains water goes off, he's got this complex system where he can fill up a tank in the house and use that for flushing toilets and, for what you need around the house. And they've used the land. This is one of the hillsides with olives on it. The olives tend to be on the more barren land. You can tell the difference between the olives when you're looking at them. They're a pale olive green leaf, and they have a black wood. The almonds are a much brighter green. And this is actually, the collecting the almonds, I said it's very important where we go. This is standing on his terrace watching the almond brolly. And what happens is this thing here, it's like a giant umbrella, and it steps up behind the tractor, and the tractor backs it up to a tree, pulls a few levers, and at this point, 2 big hands come out and grasp the tree, and then the umbrella part opens, and there's the tree that it's doing, and then it shakes the living daylights out of the tree, and the almonds fall off, roll down into the bottom of there, and then get tipped into a trailer that's dragging along. Some of the smaller places where you see, as you're going down to town, where someone might have just got 3 or 4 almond trees, they still harvest them the old way by putting a cloth around the bottom of the tree and bashing the living daylights out of it with a stick. But it has the same effect. And the almonds that are collected in the valley are taken down to the main town, where there is somewhere they process as almonds, somewhere they process your olives. But that is a common sight.
What does an almond look like at the time it's picked?
What does an almond look like?
What did they look like? I've seen them green. They look like a plum.
Yeah.
And then what happens then? They ripen somehow on the tree.
Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. I'll show you what. Right, there you've got the almond. And that's the plummy bit inside it. And then you get the almond nut in there. forms, and inside that is the almond seed. That's the ones that you can never open at Christmas, the shells of that. And then inside that there is an almond, the kernel of the...
So the green bit has sort of shriveled away and it's leaving the stone visible.
Yes, that when it's processed, that's what you pick that, and then they crack that down the processing and get the actual almond out. When we go in September, a lot of the farmers have got a large area outside and they'll spread their almonds out to dry before they go down to be processed, because then the outer skins drop off totally. So we're back on there. Goats, not as many as they used to be. This is quite an old photo because they've planted some more of this hillside up and they've moved the goalposts that you can see there. This is what's called the Rambla. So those of you who've been to Barcelona will have walked down Las Ramblas, which is a nice street with the shops and the cafes. The Rambla here is very, very different, because all the Rambla means is it's for most of the year is a dry valley. And they drive up and down it, they use it as a road. And in a minute you'll see a picture what happens when it rains. But lots of the Ramblers just all converge, but when it rains, they act as a chute and all the water comes rushing down from the surrounding hillsides and advance on the towns. But because the land is so dry, you can see there the goats are munching away trying to find whatever they can. And there there'd obviously been, that's a bit later, there'd been some rain because there was grass for them. We don't see as many goats as we used to. They used to take them down, milk them, and then the milk would go down to the dairy to be made into cheese. But this is the place that we go to. This, our friend Dave bought this in 2002. It doesn't look anything like this now, but you'll see that in a minute. And his Servendi sign, he saw it and he fell in love with it. And it was not quite a ruin, but next best thing. It had been, say, La Almazara. This part here was actually the olive mill for the whole of that valley. And it's got all its machinery in there. He bought it with its grinding stones, you name it, it's in there. You'll see some of it in a minute. This bit here was the oldest part of the house, and that's single story. And it's cut into the side of the hillside. So when you're walking round the back of it, you've only got about so much before you get between a wall and roof. That bit is possibly 300 years old. The rest of it was built later, and the first bit would have been the first floor, and then they added a second floor, and that was always used for storage. And when they went, it was just a plain floor, and it had been used for straw, whatever else wanted to be done. And they have what they call recas, is the traditional Spanish metal over the windows. Some of it says it's to keep your daughters in and stop them getting out. Some people say it's for security, but they're the recas. But he took the roof off, he's taken the windows out, you name it, he's done it to it. And in the barn, there is still all the old gears, everything to do with it. And when we go out, not so much now because he's getting past it, but Chris always used to do some work with Dave, and he'd have other friends who would come out as well and give him a hand. But most of it, everything he's done, 90% of it is done on his own. And here they were stripping a roof off, that they were going to replace the tiles. That electricity cable, you have to be careful when you're on the roof, because that's your main supply coming in. So if you stand up, you've got a risk of going up with a quick pop. And they'd been playing on something. You can see that's quite an old photo, because Chris isn't quite as grey as he is now. But they'd been in there doing some work in the barn on the tower. And shortly after he got it, he realised that the plaster that had been put on the outside was starting to blow. So he had to take it back, and this is rammed earth. The walls are sort of, this thick. And if you're drilling through, you've got the dust from the earth that's been rammed down to make it. And when he was renovating different parts of it, he found 2 old bread ovens in there that had been in the oldest part of it as well. But this here, that roof's been stripped off, a door blocked up, a door put in. But you can see that this is the earth that is taking it all off and then built it all up again. This is when they've been on one of the work shifts. You can see they've been painting. There's more paint on them than there was on the walls, I think. There's been a few instances of, let's just paint this wall. Let's see what it looks like. We had, a few years ago, there was a Sahara sand came over and the walls went red and it looked awful and it had run down. So my lad there said, well, Dave was out one day, said, right, I'm going to start painting this wall and see if he notices and he can see what a difference it makes. So he did. This was not a triumph. This was one of the pieces of machinery that were inside the barn. And Dave said, tell you what, we'll move that out, you can clean it up, and then it'll become a feature. Now, we're not sure a feature of what, but they managed to get it out the barn. No hernias were recorded, but it got fairly close. And Chris then started cleaning bits of it up, and he got brasso, and it looked wonderful. And then after a couple of years, Dave said, oh, I don't think I'll do with anything with it. We'll put it back in, shall we? Oh, God. That's his wood supply. No central heating, and he buys olive wood, 1 load a year, which he's just finished putting this year's away, gets dumped at the top of his drive, and he has to wheelbarrow it all the way down and stack it. He's not getting any younger, and he's finding it harder. But that's a year's supply of wood, which he then has to take into the house to burn, because he has wood burners in there.
Does it have a special smell?
A special?
Special smell when it's burning?
No, not that we've noticed.
No.
Possibly there is, and we're just used to it.
That's a question.
It does have a special smell when the sparks fly out and set fire to the rug in front of us.
You said something about the wall, and I never got it. It's made out of soil.
Yes, rammed earth.
Rammed it, right. So
That's been.
they put wood both sides and ram it down then.
Yeah, and build up, yeah.
Right, got you, yeah.
They were working on a garage, and he decided he was going to have knock some walls down and build a garage. And then one day, that was one of the jobs. But this is when it's starting to look more as it does now. He decided he was going to build walls around it, because he wanted to keep people out. All they have to do is climb over the wall. And he cut out, you can see it says La Almathara, the mill. He cut those letters out of marble using his saw. He's a clever lad. And if you're wondering what Chris is doing with the camera, he knows that this is being done. So I'm doing this today, so he said, well, I'd love to see it. So we're going to take that over with us to play when we go. So I've got to be careful what I say now. But this is before, this track here was an earth track leading to the house. And once we were there, a good few years ago, he said, you know what I'd really like in my dining room? I'd like a panel doing to go on the wall that shows the history of the house. What are you going to do about it? So I said, well, what do you mean, what am I going to do about it? He said, well, you can make it for me, can't you? So we decided what I was going to do. That's probably, was it about 6 foot by 4 foot, something like that, Chris?
More than that.
Yeah. And I got some enamels, which painted so you've got the press, the olive press that's still in the mill, and then you've got the grindstones, which are outside at the top of his drive. It's still in the barn, there is still the floor that they use the grindstones on. And I painted that very nicely for him with La Almathara. Las Pathicas is the name of the village. And we put it all up and he grouted it. And about 2 years later it all started dropping off, because remember I said that the wall was against the ground.
Yeah.
And the damp started to come through, so it all had to go. And he had to build a wall inside to protect it. But I've still got one last little bit. I've saved one tile that's, because my family come with a big spider. So, in the bottom corner I'd done a little spider, so I've got that in my kitchen now, the spider. We went, this is 2017, and this was parked outside. They were going to tarmac the road, leading to his house and one a little bit further on. And they did. I mean, it's quite a piece of machinery they used. And then a few months later, they came and they dug it up, because in true North Yorkshire fashion, they've decided they were going to put services down there. They were going to give him proper water, town water. So they dug it up and they laid the water pipes and they connected them up, but nothing happened for another couple of years. Because it takes a while in that one. Manana, I've got two sayings. Manana means it might eventually happen. Manana, you've got more chance of it happening in the next few weeks. But we get these fantastic sunrises as we sit there looking across the valley. And that's just the sun coming up in the morning. And I love it. I mean, some of the views I'm going to show you, I just love standing there, looking at it in different types of the year and different sunlights, and it changes so much. And we always say, Dave decided that this looked like a wagon train going across the horizon. So we say, well, they're working well, they're just travelling along, the Indians will be chasing them soon, they'll be corralling them. And that's one morning, the sunlight, that's what he's got it looking like now. Wow. You've seen the ruin, and that's what he's done. Marble is really cheap out there, and he's covered this bottom part of the house all the way around in marble, so that when they don't have any pipes, downpipes, when the it rains heavily, the water rushes off and falls here, and then wears away. If you've just got your house painted white at the bottom, it wears away at the earth that there is, and then bits start dropping off. So he's covered it all in marble, and he's got his rehas, and to get his logs into the garage, he has to have them dumped up there, carry them through. That's a hell of a slope on that. He's got his wheelbarrow that he's got to take it round to get it into the barn. But that's my view that I love. These are this estancia de, there's something they're called the something de estancia, Sierra de las Estancia. And these are when you look up the valley in the morning, the sun's just coming up, so you're getting the lovely shadows going across the valley. The Sierra de las Estancia, they're almost the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. Looking again, that's in the daytime, and they're one of the houses that is not very close. It looks quite close on that, but they are quite a way away. But it's not always good weather over there.
Beautiful.
That will have been probably March time, because you can see that the almond blossom is out and snow on the tops. Now, he's at 2,000 feet, more or less, his house. So it does get colder as you're moving up from the town. One time we were there, and it had snowed on top of the car. So there was about 2 or 3 inches on top of the car. We were going down the town, and got down, parked, and it was market day. There was still snow on top of the car. So, being the 2 big kids they are, they decided to have a snowball fight. And they were being watched by a group of lads from South America, because it's a Spanish-speaking country. You used to get a lot of South American labourers moving into that area to work. And we walked away, and we turned round, and we looked. There was about half a dozen of these young South American lads having a whale of a time, having a snowball fight, scooping the snow off the cars. When we got back, there wasn't a bit of snow to be seen. This thing has been the light of their lives, until somebody, not Christopher I might add, of the 2 of them, ran it into a wall and made the wheels collapse. This was called the Dart. We called it Dave's Dart. And it was a 2-man buggy that they used to set off up goat tracks that said, we'll be back within 2 hours. I had no idea where they were, no phone coverage. They said, we're going in that direction. I said, well, what if you don't come back? Oh, we'll come back, you know, no worries. And they'd take off. It wasn't road legal, because although it had got a number plate, it was supposed to have all sorts of other things, wasn't it, to make it road legal.
It was
So they couldn't take it on the road.
It was supposed to have a 200cc engine.
It had a what?
It was supposed to have a 200cc engine, but it had a 750.
Yeah, they swapped the engine round as well. And we took bits out from the UK in our suitcases. There was one went out, and we've got a drive shaft for it, haven't we, in the suitcase? And we were waiting for the luggage to come out. It had been Merthia, and there was a call with Mr. Knight, please come and claim his suitcase. So I'm standing there like a lemon, he shot off, and there was our suitcase in this big area, obviously had been scanned. 2 armed police standing looking at it, saying, you know, what's in here? Because it could have been a weapon. So he said, it's a drive shaft. What? They had to unlock it and prove that it was something that was quite innocuous, really. That is looking down at the house now. I did this as a paint. I took this photo 2 or 3 years ago, and I've actually done a painting of it for him. He's got it sitting in his dining room. But the marble that he's got there, and all the way along, marble is cheap into Spain. Not far from him, there's a place called Alura, which 80% of Spain's marble is mined there. So marble is a cheap building material, and you'll see on some of the photos of the town, it's everywhere. And it gives a lovely finish, but it's cheap. And there you can see the mountains behind, the Sierra de las Estancias. And then that was last September, when we not got the cover on the pool yet. We don't go in there very often because it has to be very hot before I'll go in. But occasionally we do. And he says that if he was going again, he wouldn't bother with the pool because the number of times he uses it, for the amount of effort that it takes, it's not really worth it. But I spend all my time now sitting under the pergola reading, which is wonderful. When they were doing as many jobs as they did, I was always chief cook and bottle washer. And that's my role when I'm out there. And I call this the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe lamp. It's a Yorkshire lamppost. He took it out to Spain when he moved out there in 2002. He brought it back when he came back for a year, and then he took it out again with him, and it's now firmly cemented in. And if we're going out in the evening, he always lights it so we can see as we're coming in. And I just think I love that lamppost. This is a bird that we heard, and we couldn't believe it. It's a golden oriole, and it's got the most incredible song. Beautiful, beautiful noise. And we were sitting there and we could hear it singing. And we looked up and there it was in this tree. And it sat there for a little while and we managed to get photos of it. We've never seen it in the tree since. And this is going back pre-COVID. You can hear it in the valley sometimes singing. And once or twice we've got a flash of the yellow because it's that incredible piercing yellow as it's going along. That's one of my artifarties. That's my seat, but I like the shadows that you get in the morning with it. And one of the things that Chris loves when he goes is the dogs. And Dave loves his dogs too. And I couldn't do something about his house that I didn't mention his dogs in, I was told. But the other thing is, those cloud formations, I have never seen clouds like that in my life. Before or since that one day we were there, that was a couple of years ago. And it looks like waves, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like another one.
Yeah, it's just totally different to anything I've ever seen. And here we have the village that is close to him. This is a little village called Las Pathicas. It's got a population of about 100. And if we look, just here, you've got the main road comes along and through the village there. And you're looking across that hillside, which apart from the planting of a few more trees, has been the same for hundreds of years, I wouldn't mind guessing. Funny little village, because here you've got a municipal swimming pool for the valley, which is open in the summer for the kids to just go and use. They don't pay for it, it's just there. It's also got a church. I think the next one shows them slightly better than this does. Oh. I go back to that one again. We've got a church, which is in this area here. I could see it at home where you've got the church tower. You've got a baker, which has a little shop. You've got a sala de valetario, which is a room for saying goodbye. It's effectively the room that in the valley, if somebody dies, they take their bodies down there before the funeral and the coffins are open so that people can go and say goodbye to the person who's died. But that is in this little village, again for the whole valley. They also have a doctor's, and you don't need an appointment. What you can do is you have this room in the village that the nurse goes to once a week and the doctor goes. And if you want an appointment, you go down and there's a piece of paper. It's open for a couple of hours before people start wanting to go to the docs. And you write your name on the piece of paper. The old girls that live in the village know that they can go down 2 hours before, write the name down at the front of the queue. The doc won't be there for a couple of hours, and they just go home, have a cuppa and come back when it's time. Now, last September, he'd had a knee replacement, so we were having to go to the doctors quite a bit because he had all sorts of problems after it. And there was one day the doctor didn't decide that they were going to go to Pathicus, but he knew that they'd be going to the next village down, so he said, let's go down there. We dropped him in the village at the doctor's surgery, which is just a door into a room, and that's it. And we walked up to the bar in the village, because every village, except Pathicus, doesn't have a proper bar. It has a pool bar. You'll see a picture of that in a minute. But everybody sort of signs the name and goes in. So we're just about at the bar, and we got this phone call. Have you got a pen? So I said, yeah. Can you come back with it? Yeah, why? That doctor's, they didn't have a pencil for you to sign. You had to have your own pencil with you to sign down. And if you hadn't got your own pencil, you couldn't have an appointment with the doctor. Looking from the other side of the gate, this is the village of Pathicus. And you can see it changes depending where the sun is as well. This is the village that we're just looking down on. And it looks very, very different there. That was an evening, because the light is coming on the end of the church there, because the sun sets over in that direction. The church there was built in the 19th century. There's not an awful lot there. I've said about the little shop. When we first went, you used to see an old guy riding around on his donkey all the time, and he used to go on his donkey down to the town. We have the dead centre. It has its own cemetery, but that's again for quite a large area of the valley. And the church, little church in the village, and the clock strikes every half hour. It's a lot of it now. It's all done electronically. And this is a busy day in Pathicus. We walk down to the baker's quite often, and because the bread is just wonderful. And you get your bag with your bread. You get a loaf like that, and it's in Spain. The basic bread is subsidised, so I think it's €1.40 we pay for a loaf, yay big, of the most wonderful crusty bread, and it's still sometimes still warm where it's come out. Again, as I say, another busy day. And here's the pool bar. Now the pool bar, the Bar Piscina Pathicus, even that's not normal. It doesn't have, they don't have a bar. They used to have a proper bar in the village, that closed down. But this pool bar, somebody can rent it for a year. And they do a tender to the council that they're going to rent it. And the idea is that they're open every day between set hours because the workmen coming down the village stop and people stop for their drinks and their coffees. But so often we've gone and it's not been open. This is the Fuente house, which is just below where Dave lives. We walk down to it. This is the modern bungalow, and this is the Fuente. Now, in that valley, you find the springs, and they were originally used for water for the people in the valley, and that take their bottles down and fill them up, or whatever you want to fill up. And that is still there. And you can just see the water coming out there, but then it goes down into this. And this is the village wash house, and it's still in use. And you can go in there and you can see, and some of the older ladies take their washing in, the water runs through and out the far end, comes from the Fuente, drains down, and they've got that was restored in the last few years because it is still used. And this is one of the water channels at the side of the road, and not far from the village. And you can see that there's a metal flap there and a metal bit here. And what happens, these water channels are again bringing water down from the mountains, not part of the Efekia system, but they're other water channels. And the older ladies of the village, and you see this all the way down going to the town, which is 10 kilometres away, they lift the metal bit up and then they wash their husband's work clothes in the running water there. So you still see them working, washing the clothes at the side of the way, at the river, at the side of the road. Things that were happening 50 years ago are still happening in this part of Spain. And I said about the effect of the water, that was after a rainstorm, and that was the Rambla. You can see how it's being gouged away. And after there's been a really heavy storm, they have lorries that called graders that they take up all the different ramblers, the little valleys that go off the main valley, and smooth it all out. That took a lot of smoothing out. And we're moving now to the town of Albox, and you think, well, what's she showing us a picture of a radio station for? This was the site of the Moorish castle, and there was a castle built in Albox, and in about 1500, when you were getting the movement of the Catholic monarchs taking over, the Moors were driven out, and the castle was still there, but then there was an earthquake, and much of the castle was destroyed, and the stones were used to build some of the older houses in the town. And then a few years ago, on the hillside above, they decided that they were going to erect a large cross as a symbol for the town, which they were working on when they did that, and that's it finished. And from that, you get views of the town of Albox. Now, Albox is a funny place. There's the church and the main square, and that's the town hall with a little church next to it. Albox became incredibly popular at the turn of the millennium for people moving out from the UK because it was cheap. And when you first went out there, the predominant tone that you heard in the market wasn't Spanish, it was estuary English. Hello, darling. All these people had gone out to open English bars, English shops, and they were going to make their lives out there. But a lot of them have gone now. In 2008, there was a big property collapse, financial collapse, and a lot of people, much to our amazement, we discovered that a lot of people went out there. They were taking mortgages to buy their houses, they didn't have an income, they were having to work to support themselves, where Dave went out, retired quite early, to live his life out there, but a lot didn't. And this is called, where it goes down to Albox, called the Almathara Valley, and that's moving into down to a larger valley that leads down to the sea. And you can see the quite rugged mountains around it. Funny, grotty little place. It has become more gentrified in the last few years. It's got a population of about 11,000, but that includes all the little villages as well. It's been hit by floods because it's got the Rambler going down it, and that, I think it was about 1950, the last major flood, and half the town was flooded out. And we like to go and wander around the back streets. And as you can see, this house, nicely painted, but dropping to bits. And, well, what on earth? There was nothing behind it. You still see that, where you've got a wall, and they've painted the wall, and there is nothing behind it. Either it's fallen down, or it's been removed. And they're trying to rebuild some of the older houses, which is a shame because they've got terrific character, but that's about all they've got. The grotty little back streets, because that's what they are, that was the Bazaar Al-Mathara. Now nobody now, that's gone now. But you can see the pavements are marble. All the pavements are marble. And the Bazaar Al-Mathara was a sort of a general dealers where you could buy clothing, DIY, what have you. Now, they're umpteen huge Chinese shops. And I mean huge. They're like aircraft hangars. And you can buy in a Chinese shop anything that you want. And they're all different families. They've all got more or less the same stocking. They're all more or less the same price, but it supports them all. And we go, he buys all sorts of rubbish in it, you know. Oh, that big brand in the garage, I'll have one of them. So you've got those grotty shops. You've also got a Lidl, an Aldi, a Mercadona, which is a big Spanish chain. You've got about 3-4 other smaller supermarkets. It's actually better equipped than Harrogate for supermarkets. Some of the houses, the old ones, they've really done up. And I think the doors on that one are stunning. And you've got the heads detailed. Now, we noticed this, if you look at the number and the symbol next to it, we'd walked up this street umpteen times because at the top of it is Dave goes to a Spanish school twice a week to help his Spanish. And we go into town with him, and then we tootle down, go and have a coffee, wander around. If it's market day, we go do the market. And then we walk back up and meet him at the end. So we'd walked past this countless times, and we'd never noticed it. And then one day we thought, what's that strange symbol next to the house number? And we looked around and we found that there was a couple of roads, all single-storey houses, all the old rammed earth houses, in a very tight area, all with that symbol. So we started asking around, and we found out from Julia, who was one of the teachers at the school, that this symbol denotes that there were houses that were put up after the Civil War. And because that area was really badly hit, they did not support Franco, and the people were really suffering. And this was an attempt by the government to sort of grease their way with the people that lived there and give them somewhere to live. So if you see a house with that symbol, it shows it's particularly a post-Civil War house. And when we first went down, the market was in the main square. You've got this lovely old church, Baroque church, and the market spreads out to a few streets around it. And it's a very old-fashioned market. You can see it's got crates with the planks across with the food on it. Some of that is stuff that's been picked that day. You get people that are quite small coming in, and they'll have a van and it'll have some peppers, some onions they've taken out of the garden, a few bits. You also find little Spanish ladies dressed in black on a seat, and they'll have 3 things round them. They might have a bucket that's got some snails in it. I wouldn't want the snails, thank you very much. You have a cardboard box with a bit of wire on top that might have a couple of live rabbits in it. They're not pets. Those are going to be dinner. And then they might have a bowl in front of them that might have 2 or 3 peppers that have been picked that morning, a few onions that have been taken out of the garden. It really is rural Spain. And then you have the Ponzi things that look really nice for photos, where you've got the nice herbs all beautifully arranged in bags, and the ham, wonderful Serrano ham. depending on what the pigs have been fed on, that governs the price of the ham. So if you get a ham where the pigs have dieted on oak, acorns, it affects the flavour, and they're the most prized hams. When the English went out there, so give them the ubiquitous car boot sale. And all of a sudden, car boot sales started popping up. And they moved the position of where they had this one. You've never seen as much rubbish in your life. I mean, you think car boot sales here can be bad. It's like shopping in Harrods compared to being there. And very quickly, the Spaniards cottoned onto this idea. So you go to a car boot sale, and you'll go, and there'll be a heap of clothes, second-hand clothes, about 2 foot high, just thrown in a heap. There'll be a pile of old tyres that they're trying to sell. There'll be a second-hand toilet and bidet. Obviously second-hand. You name it, you can get those in the car boot set. But what they've done as well, they've moved to a proper market across the road, and they call it the bricolage, which is antique. Well, there's antiques and there's antiques, and believe me, the ones they have there are a long way from what we understand as being antiques. But over the last 5 years, they've started to gentrify the town an awful lot, and there's a sense of civic pride developing. When we first went there was 1 or 2 very, very old cars and a lot of little white Citroen vans, and that was the only transport. Now we see quite posh cars. You've got second generation drivers where it was little old men sort of doing this up the road. As an aside, if you see a driving school car, you really feel sorry for the kids learning to drive out there, because there's the driver, the instructor and the pupil, and there'll be grandma and granddad sitting in the back. It's the dumb thing to take members of your family out with you when you go for a driving lesson. Can you imagine what that's like? But this church, 17th century church, Baroque facade, and they've covered the whole of what was the square there in marble. And the benches that they've got, marble's cheap. So you've got marble benches, and they've planted palm trees. It's beautiful. And the place at the top with the red awning is a place that we sit quite regularly and have a coffee while he's doing his school. But the town's become more refined, if you like. It's sort of trying to prove that it is a nice town. It is a lovely town. That's the new town hall. It was a ruin when we first went there. Grotty, dropping down, and there's some civic pride in the town that there wasn't. When we first went there, that was the town hall. And I remember on one occasion going in with Dave to try and sort something out, and he asked the first person on the desk what he wanted. They said, right, you go to that one. And you went to that one. They said, no, you go to that one. And I think we went to 5 people being moved on before we got to who we were supposed to be seeing. But now it's been changed into a library, biblioteca. Poeta Juan de Bell. They've got fountains and rose gardens. The reason I put this in, if you look, it's the side of the library, and they've painted a huge mural on the side of it. That's when they've got the cherry picker up doing it. But we're sitting there having a coffee at a Paria, and looked, there's a cherry picker with a man painting the wall over there. Don't be daft. And we looked, and there was. And you were left with this giant mural. The only trouble is the paint they used wasn't terribly good, and it's starting to flake off now, but that's another story. And then they built this. It's a donkey being dragged along with a cart, and it's made out of crushed marble. Remember I said about it being the area, most of the marble in Spain comes from that area. And they get crushed marble and they mix it and they compress it and use it for sculptures. So some of the sculptures you see aren't carved marble, they're compressed marble. But this poor old donkey, he lost his ear. Someone broke it off. It took him about 4 years to put his ear back on, but he's got 2 ears again now. And as part of the civic pride, they decided that they would have, as you're approaching the town, there was a series of little roundabouts, and they put something in the roundabout that reflected the history of the town. So there, you've got transport, so you've got a donkey and cart, and then you've got a modern lorry.
Not a very
There's
modern
one.
lorry.
Further up, you've got an old fire engine on the roundabout. And then, right when you get up to the town, these are fiberglass models of donkeys and people, reflecting things that happened in the town, and women, models of them at the fountain as well, collecting the water. But this is my favourite place. It's the monastery of the Virgin of the Salienti. St Dave's House on the Salienti Rambler. This place was built in the 16th century, and it's a site of pilgrimage, and I just love it. Every time we go, it's about 10 minutes up the road, and I just have to go. And they'll both look at me and say, oh, do we have to go again? You've been... And it just gives you this wonderful feeling of serenity. And when we first went, they hadn't done the front in marble like they have now. But it's marble everywhere. And they say that this place has more windows and doors than there are days in the year. And you see there, the beautiful old handmade tiles. And it's painted this sort of rusty colour. And the shadows that you get on a sunny day are wonderful. And looking towards it, they've put the cross there now. And I like the lights that they've got down the side. And if you look, in a second, we'll come back. You see that point there? That's quite a steep drop. We'll come back to that drop in a minute. The courtyard of it. Often we're the only people up there. It's open. You can just wander in. Sometimes, because they have pilgrimages to it, it gets very, very busy at certain times of the year. And in Easter, Santa Semana, Holy Week, they carry statues of the Virgin from the town all the way up the Ramblers, the Rambler, and up to the halfway up Mount Royal, which is what this is on, to the church here. And the courtyards. And the church itself. But back to that fence, that is the place where I feel that you're standing on top of the world. You're looking at a landscape that's probably not changed in 300 years, except that the almonds and the olives are in rows. And these old boxes, take that there, the valley beyond there, that's where the town is. And when there's a slight wind, and there's no noise, and you're standing looking at that view, it's just wonderful. And again, you can see that how hard they have to work to cultivate. They can't get water up there very easily. They rely on what water does fall for the crops. I'm just looking at the town, I'm going to have to zip through these. Garucha is a little fishing village nearby that we go to. But also, if you look there, you'll see there's all sorts of derricks, and they load 1 million tonnes of gypsum a year from that port. Just about 20 miles inland, there's a town called Sobas, where they mine gypsum that they use for using for plaster of Paris. And that all goes out of this little port. But it's a fishing port as well. So you see them sitting mending their nets twice. And the patterns, I like the patterns they make when they've got the nets out drying as well. And a few years ago, this statue of the Virgin appeared. And that is, I said about compressed marble. That's made out of compressed marble. It's not carved marble. And looking down the beach, it's not the place you see many Brits. It's totally Spanish. Unlike this place, which some of you might have been to, it's called Majaca. Majaca Pueblo. There's Majaca Pueblo and Majaca Playa. And in the 15th century, it was used by the Moors as a defensive position, and the Romans and the Phoenicians knew about it as well. And that's looking, you can see there, the top bit is the original sort of 15th, 16th century bit up there. But you can see how high it is above the landscape. When you look, you see this big hill with this brilliant white bit on the top. Here is Majaca Playa, which is where the hotels are, and people do go from the UK to that area for holidays. And these are all more modern buildings. But if you buy a house in Mahacca Playa, in Pueblo, there's only a couple of parking places. And they're down about this level. And if you live up there, you've got to carry all your shopping to get it back up there. There is no access for vehicles. And you can see how high up it is into the mountains and the views that you get around it. I'm speeding up. But it is, again, it's somewhere we like to go. But you can see the little road, how narrow it is. These are the 16th century houses and the 16th century roads that you're going down. Not a chance of getting your car up there. And then you move down towards the coast, and you've got still the white houses, predominantly colour for painting because it reflects the light, and to the beach, Mahacca Playa. But this isn't Mahacca Playa, it looks like all the playas, the beaches that you get. This is in a town called Aguilas. And if you look at the hill over there, you've got a fort on the top of it. That fort was built in the 17th century to protect the area from the Barbary pirates. This coast going down between Almeria and around, sorry, not Almeria, Alicante. No, Almeria, wrong Al. Almeria up towards Murcia was very rich in gold and silver and copper. And they used to mine it inland and move it down to the coast to ship it out to different places. So they built on lots of headlands, they built these forts to protect. And it's a beggar of a climb, but it's a heck of a position once you get up there. And you're looking out over the hills, the flat plain there. And this bit here actually goes, this flat area goes a long way inland, and it's one of the rich agricultural areas around a town called Pulpi, where they grow a lot of salad vegetables that have exported. On the view from the top of there, and again, and this chap is in the marina, and it's Icarus. Some of you might know the legend of Icarus, who wanted to fly, so he made himself a set of wings made out of feathers and wax, and as he got nearer to the sun, his wings melted and he plummeted to earth. And for some reason, in 2015, they had having a carnival and they decided that they were going to do a statue of Icarus. So they did, and it's wonderful. I mean, it's a larger than life-size statue, and he's even got his little bird head on. Look, you can see his beak. In fact, you can see a lot of him when it's... Aguilas has still got Moorish influence in some of his buildings, but also strong Art Nouveau influences as well. That house there, you can see the beautiful sort of 1880s to 1910 style of building. That says it's a casino. Now, I don't know if any of you have been watching Michael Portillo's Journeys Around Spain. If not, I recommend that you watch them. They're fantastic. But we learned from watching a programme a couple of weeks ago that a casino is not all it seems. And we'd seen a building in one of the old buildings in Old Box, and it said it was a casino. And we thought, well, what they're doing in a little town like this, having a gambling den. It's not. In that part of Spain, a casino is merely a club. And people go to it to drink coffee, to read papers, to read books, and chat to their friends. So we didn't know that till we saw it on the Portillo programme. But when I took that a couple of years ago, I thought, oh, often that door's shut, I'll have a look inside. And they're quite often beautifully decorated buildings as well. And we always go to this square because it's got some nice bars around it. And it's got Paloma Blanca, white doves. And there's Chris, who hates birds. What I'll do, I'll just do this last one, because again, this is one of my all-time favourite places. It's not tourist Spain, it's not the sort of place you will see or have heard of, but I'm conscious of the time and I'll leave the tail end of it. This is called Vélez Blanco. Now, Vélez Blanco, a little bit inland, and again, it was the site of a Moorish castle. Catholic monarchs drove the Moors out, there it was left. And then in the 16th century, a new castle was built on the site. And I took this photo from about 4 miles away because I wanted to get a view, it's the only way you can get a view of the castle as a whole. And it is stunning. And it's built in the style of a Renaissance castle. If ever you've been to northern Italy and seen the turrets on some of the castles there, particularly the lakes area in northern Italy, it's that same style of crenellation that you get. And I've just got a couple of bits to check on this one, because I tell you it was the amounts that I wanted to get right, because they were just mind-blowing. We go here. They started to, it was bought by the government of Almeria, or is it Andalusia in 2005, because what had happened is it just fallen into disrepair. But look at that for a place. We've been there umpteen times, and I think only once has there been anybody else there but us. And the first time we went, how much is it? Nothing. You don't pay to go in, and you just wander around this gobsmackingly beautiful castle, and it's like nothing you've ever. It's almost like a fairy tale castle. And because you get the strong light as well, you get some wonderful shadows. But you can see how streaming it is with people. And what's really special about this, when it was built in the 16th century, there was huge amounts of marble used in the interior, and it was done like an Italian palace in marble. And then, that's one of the crests that's on the wall. And then the guy who owned it, that's just looking out towards looks like one of the boots, the American flat top rocks that you see. That's the view out from the castle with the village below you. And what happened was that in 1902, the owners decided they were going to get rid of it. And they stripped out the valuables. The valuables were these huge interiors of marble, this beautiful Spanish marble, and they sold them to a French antiquarian. And they were shipped to Marseille, then they were shipped to Paris, and in 1940 it was all shipped to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, where it was rebuilt, and it's in there now. All the original buildings, the original marble work and the palace interior has been rebuilt in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And I think he was paid something like $3 million, the equivalent of $3 million when he sold it to the Andalusian government, who've slowly been doing it up and making it so that people can go and see it. What I will do is I will call it a day there, because it's after, I wasn't sure how long it would go on. I'm going to very quickly go through to the last one, which has stopped working. Oh, it has indeed. I can't take through to the last one, which is just a farewell to the area. No, don't want to do it. It was a photograph of a wine bottle and 2 glasses. Right. Oh yeah. Lash it through. That's the biggest castle in Spain, Muslim structure in Spain. After
beautiful.
Vera, Lorca, castles in Spain.
This is boring,
Yeah. Well, it would. There it is.
Hey, well done. Well done.
You went too fast. No, it was, I thought, what can I bring as the final one? Because we do love that area. It's an area we would never have gone to if our friend hadn't lived there.
Yeah.
But we get so much out of it because it's like going back in time. And you see that and you hear about it. It's like places were 50 years ago when Brits started going out there on holiday. But now it's our spot that we love, and we've enjoyed 24 and a bit years going there, and we hope that we'll continue. Not for another 24 years, but we'll leave us out in a... You lost it, love. That's it. They don't want. Doesn't matter. Well, as I say, all it was a bottle of wine, 2 glasses and a nice shadow, because
It won't do it.
every day you've got to do something, haven't you? And the wine's cheap, the sun's warm, So you sit there with your glass in the evening. Thank you for listening to Sprain That We Library tin at the back. All the talks that I do, the money goes to the library. You know the routine by now, you've done it enough. Thanks ever so much, I'm glad you, I hope you enjoyed it.